Greetings, survival horror fans. ZQA Nostalgia here, and today I want to talk to you guys about Resident Evil 7. We're going to be going in depth here, guys. This isn't going to be like my previous review. There's going to be spoilers galore. Basically, the entire game is going to be spoiled in detail, so if that's not something you're looking forward to, yeah, you're going to want to go away. If you haven't played the game, get out of here. I'm telling you right now, if you're a classic survival horror fan, if you love classic Resident Evil, get this game. It's worth the $60. Play through it before you watch this video. Come back later though, because I need those views. One more thing to mention before I get into it, guys. If you've already seen my previous review, you already know about the graphics, controls, all of that stuff. You're going to want to fast forward. I'll have it up on the screen for you to take a look at, to where we start getting into the spoilers and what might be happening, all the mysterious stuff with the story. That's really the meaty part of this video. Alright, so first up we've got graphics. This is a beautiful looking game. There's a lot of people who are saying it doesn't look that great. I'm not seeing that at all. Now, there are some textures that look flat, especially in the outside areas. The ground can look pretty crappy. Some of the character models can look rubbery, like Marguerite's face. Her face just kind of looks like a rubber mask. Some of the other characters can look that way as well. So, not so great with the facial modeling. The hair looks pretty decent. It's not the best looking game, right? They're saying that it's photorealistic, but it's kind of somewhere in between photorealistic and something else that just doesn't quite cut it. It doesn't take you out of the experience though, and it does set up a great atmosphere. And as a whole, if you stand back and just look at a hallway or something, you're going to notice a lot of detail in the shadows, the lighting, and it does look really good. But if you scrutinize certain areas of the game, for some reason it seems so out of place, some of these textures. It's like a blemish on an otherwise beautiful surface, but it doesn't really detract from the game at all. Now, moving along to sound, the sound in the game is fantastic. Everything sounds great, and it's really creepy. The way that the music works in this is it's dynamic. It comes in and out depending on the situation. Like if Jack is stalking you in a hallway, for example, it'll start to pick up. Once he spots you, it'll pick up even more, and then it starts to get pretty terrifying. The game has a lot of sounds that are happening in the background. Sometimes they'll be triggered from an event, like picking something up will start a sound, and it'll start an event that happens. But it's really hard at first to tell whether or not there's an enemy there or if the game is just messing with you and trying to scare you. After about the midway mark, probably about 5 or so hours into the game, you're going to start to understand, okay, this is just them messing with me. But still, sometimes when you hear things, it's them setting you up. So you can really never feel comfortable, not truly, but it does kind of wear thin. I did notice just regular music in the background, but it seemed really subtle, and it's nothing like back in the day with, say, Resident Evil 1 and 2, like when you walked into the mansion and you first got that music, or when you walked into the RPD and you know that song and it sticks in your head. There's really no songs like that that are sticking out to me, and that is pretty disappointing, but the way this game was built, they really needed that dynamic range, and a lot of times they want you to feel uncomfortable with the silence and all of the creaks and bumps and things like that. So having songs playing constantly in the background or some sort of track, even if it's an ambient one, I think it would have detracted from all of those sounds that they use pretty effectively for the first half of the game. We do have the Aunt Rhody song, which I think is going to be iconic for a long time. I think that's a song that's like based off of folklore. I think it's not an original song for this. I never heard it until Resident Evil came out, but that's something that I thought was interesting. And of course, we've got the save theme that I'm using in this very video. Moving along to the controls, it functions really well with a mouse and keyboard. Everything is pretty responsive. You do have a quick turn key, classic Resident Evil style stuff there. I don't think the original couple Resident Evils had that though. I think that started with 3. Correct me if I'm mistaken, guys. It's been a while since I played. But the quick turn is there. You've got all that stuff. It does feel kind of classic, but hey, this is a first-person shooter, really. It's not an action game by any means, but those are going to be the controls. If you played a FPS game, it's pretty much going to control like that. Performance on PC is really good, but there have been issues with stuttering that I have noticed, and I have also noticed crashes. I did not mention this in my previous review. I have crashed a few times, and it is a pain in the ass. Capcom, you got to get on that shit. It's pissing people off. There's a lot of people leaving bad reviews because they're crashing and they're having problems with stuttering. Now, this is something that evidently it doesn't matter what kind of PC you have. It's some sort of compatibility issue that they need to patch with AMD processors. Some people are saying it's Windows 10. I don't think anybody really knows exactly what it is, but it's a problem, and it's a problem that can be fixed. It's just something that they need to buckle down and handle. I don't think that they're going to, but it would be nice if they did. But hey, most people are not having problems, and you guys probably will not have any issues. If you do, like I said, you just got to drop it down to medium settings, and that's what you're seeing here on your screen. It still looks pretty damn good. The shadows don't look as nice, but that's really the only thing that's noticeable. In terms of length, you're going to get about 10 hours out of this. Some people finish it earlier than that. It took me just about 11 hours. I did do some standing around, so I didn't like sprint through it or anything like that. I did kind of take my time, look around the house. I was not in a race. I know how these games are. If you're the kind of person who just wants to sprint through a game, this isn't for you. This is a game where you're meant to take your time, look around, scavenge, and just absorb the atmosphere. It is worth a second playthrough. Those of you who have beat it, you have to give a serum to either Mia or Zoe, and I chose to give it to Mia. So now I'm going to have to go through and do it with Zoe. I am on my second playthrough, but with everything that's been going on, so many games that need to be covered here on the channel, I haven't had the time to go through it. So I'd appreciate nobody dropping any spoilers in terms of Zoe's side of things. I don't know how that turns out. Mia, you guys talk all you want. It doesn't matter. I expect within a couple of days I will have seen both sides of the story, and that will no longer be an issue. But I don't know what happens with Zoe, unfortunately. Just not yet. Which, of course, leads us to the story, and that is the bulk of this video. I love the story here. I really did. Now, there's some parts of it, it was like, man, I don't know. It just kind of seemed like it was being ripped from other places, namely Fear. You guys know what I'm talking about with Evelyn. It's just, I don't know. That kind of irked me. But when you found out who she was and everything that was going on, when you found out that she was actually the grandmother the whole time, it made you look at things differently. On a second playthrough, you're seeing her popping up in these areas. It's like, oh shit, so she's trying to get around and keep an eye on you is what it feels like. At least that's what I gathered from it. And then the whole Aunt Rhody song starts to make sense. Some of the lyrics in there, if you're looking at it from her perspective, it's like, should you feel sorry for her? It just left me sitting there asking questions. So while I didn't like the Fear kind of ripoff feeling that they were using here, the way that they made me question things is really, really smart. Okay, because you have to think about it like this. This is essentially, it's a little girl, right? I mean, yeah, she's a bioweapon, but she's feeling pretty much like abandoned. So she takes in the Bakers, like her own personal family, and all the victims that have shown up throughout the game. It's people that she's pulling in, and they either made the cut or they didn't. That's what I gathered from it. All the molded you're seeing around the property are probably previous victims that didn't make the cut. I know she was able to make the molded. She like vomited the shit out that we saw that with the container ship. I don't remember the name of the ship. I think they gave it a name. Anyways, she was throwing this shit up, so it could be that, or it could be people that just didn't work out, like with the Bakers. Some people took to the infection better than others, is what I was gathering from it. Like I said, I do have to go through it and play it a couple more times. It's one of those things where, in order to fully understand the story, well, you're not really going to fully understand it because they haven't really showed everything yet. In order to get a really good grasp on it, you want to play it a few times. It just felt to me like Capcom was kind of trying to paint her as someone that maybe you should feel sorry for. This little girl that just wants a family. But at the same time, she's kind of psychotically killing everyone and manipulating their brains and making them into freaks and animals. And something that's interesting is Lucas, I think, was one of the most interesting villains in this game because he was noted as being a bad seed previously, and this was something that was told to us all the way back with the teaser. They said, oh yeah, the Bakers, and they had a son, he was a bad seed. So you can see that all the way back to that point. So he seemed like he was bad to begin with, right? Like he wasn't really being manipulated by Evelyn as much as the others. He was kind of just fucked up. You saw a part where you read an entry in the journal. He locked one of his friends in the cellar for some, I can't remember exactly what it was. It was something really stupid, really small remark. And he died up there. Of course, he set up that whole clown trap for Clancy. I think it was for Clancy. And burned him alive. So he was just a sadistic, sick bastard all around. I think without Evelyn's influence on his mind, he's crazy anyways. And what the fuck happened to him? I don't know. I don't know if you find out with Zoe. So that's why I'm trying to get to that point to see if maybe he shows up more. But he just kind of took off. So it's really mysterious what's going on with him. That's what I want to know. What's up with Lucas? Are we going to find out in the DLC? We might, but they might put it off for another game. He might show up. I enjoyed Mia's story a lot. It seemed like she was kind of the center of it, though, right? Because Ethan was just there doing his thing. He was looking for her. But then we find out that she was like a secret service girl. I don't know if she was working with Umbrella Corps. Maybe somebody can tell me down in the comments. Because it's really interesting what was going on with her. I know that watch that Ethan had, that device that he had on his wrist, it was hers. So that was the whole big reveal with that. Every time he got near the sample, it would say target acquired. It's because it was hers. She was searching for it. So she was obviously on a mission to get that and keep things contained. It seems like she was trying to take care of Evelyn. Like they said, they were on that cruise ship, taking her from one point to another. So at first, the whole watch thing threw me off. I was thinking, what is, like, Ethan an agent and we just don't know about it? Well, no, they strapped that thing to him after he lost his hand. Zoe put it on him. So that really makes Mia a mysterious character. And from the beginning, I really liked her because once you get to the part with the house when she's coming up the stairs, by the way, that was very effective. The first hour or so of this game was extremely effective for me. I loved it. There's a lot of people who were bitching about the boss battles and how it worked. It felt scripted, blah, blah, blah. I didn't mind it at all, guys. I loved it. Everything worked fine for me. And when she took your arm off, I just about shit my pants. I couldn't believe it. I thought I did something wrong. That's the biggest thing. And that's where I think Capcom wanted people to feel that. Oh, fuck, do I have to hit retry? I think I messed up. I don't think I was supposed to lose my arm. And later on, Jack can actually take your leg off, which I learned was a rare scene. He started to do it to me, and I hit retry. I didn't watch it all the way through. I watched it on YouTube. It's pretty brutal. He takes your leg off if you haven't seen it, and then you pour the shit on your leg, and it kind of fuses back together. That's how they explain what happened with his arm. So it's some sort of like essence of molded oil or something that he's pouring on himself that just magically binds his appendages back together. Kind of cheesy, but it does explain things a little bit. We're used to seeing all these weaponized BOWs. We're not used to seeing something that actually looks like it's going to benefit mankind. Who knows, there could be some horrible side effects that I'm not aware of. But evidently, there's this stuff on the market now. If you happen to lose an appendage, you can just pour it on and you're good to go. So I have to say it's a lot better than just creating liquors and hunters and all sorts of shit to tear people up. At least they did something restorative. At this point, I want to talk about the soldiers a little bit that were talking over the intercom. At that one point in the game, I think it was just after you got through the whole bullshit with the Lucas maze. Maybe it was before. But they started talking about how they're going to come into the house. You don't really see them until the end of the game, and then Redfield shows up, and you take off with them. It doesn't look anything like Chris Redfield, and a lot of people have mentioned this. But the funny thing about that is, well, you kind of have to remember that there's semi-rebooting things, so maybe that's just the way Chris looks now. But it's strange. I don't know anything about Umbrella Corps. I didn't play the game. Evidently, they're not very nice either. So the back of that chopper had the Umbrella Corps logo on it. Are these guys going to become like the new Umbrella? It looks like they were coming in to secure that shit for their own personal means, their own gains. So I don't know if I really trust this Redfield character or what the hell is going on with that. In terms of playing a nobody, and just playing Ethan, it's something that it does kind of bother me. I didn't think it would, but it does. It feels like maybe they really should have rebooted it. Maybe they should have just gone back to the original Resident Evil and gave us those characters we remember and just kind of changed it around a little bit to kind of fit the way they were trying to go with it. But at the same time, I really enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the setting, all of the characters, and I really wouldn't want that to go away. But at the same time, damn it, I wanted to play as Chris. I wanted to play as Jill. Ethan wasn't very interesting to me. He was just kind of like a blank palette. He was just kind of there. Like I said, Mia really felt like the star of the show, as well as Evelyn. It's weird. It kind of reminds me of Final Fantasy XII, where you didn't really care about the main character. Everybody else just kind of seemed to matter more. That's what it feels like to me with this game. Jack was really interesting. Marguerite was interesting. When you learn that she can manipulate insects and all of these different things, she was like a spider lady towards the end when you encounter her for the last time. They were interesting characters. I wanted to learn more about them, and I wanted to see more of them. So I think that plays to the credit of the game. But when you've got a protagonist, he's supposed to be like the main protagonist, he's kind of weak. Maybe that's just me. Maybe you guys found Ethan appealing. To me, he was just kind of there. You know, he wasn't terrible, but he wasn't great. He was just there. I know why they did it. You guys know why they did it. They did it because they wanted you to feel like you were playing that person. If they gave him too much of his own story, it's really not you anymore. That must have been what their reasoning was for it. To just try to give you an average Joe who's looking for his wife. You're scared shitless, you lost your arm, and you're in this horrifying and incredibly bizarre situation. So that's probably why they did that. But yeah, I guess the classic side of me just wanted to play Chris. I wanted to play as Chris. Can you fucking blame me? Now, in terms of the boss battles, because I do want to talk about these a little bit, I felt that the first fight with Jack was pretty fun with the clippers when you had to get the chainsaw. It was pretty intense. Okay, you had to block at the right time, or he took your head off, or you could just kind of sidestep him. It was interesting. I thought it was fun. The follow-up battle with him when he turns into that slug-looking thing with eyeballs all over it, that was more of a classic kind of a feel to it. It had that classic Resident Evil feel. I liked that battle probably the most. I'd have to say probably, yeah. The one with Marguerite was pretty cool too when she was in that. It was kind of like the guardhouse. So there were some connections here that you could feel from the original Resident Evil. I'm going to touch on that in a second. Here I go again, getting off track. But the Marguerite fight was interesting throughout. The spider form, it was fun, but it wasn't my favorite fight. And the fight at the end with Evelyn, that one was a little disappointing. I felt like it needed to be a little bit more over the top. Maybe she should have transformed another time. I don't know. With Resident Evil, it always feels like, holy shit, why won't you fucking die? And I guess they did kind of do that, right? Because she turns into this big, huge thing, and then at the end, when you kill her, she like calcifies, which I thought was really cool. Every time the mold would die, it would just calcify and then break apart, which was really fucking awesome. But I can't help but feel like I'm missing a boss battle somewhere. Do you guys feel that? Did you get that sense like, hey, there's got to be at least one more of these, right? I think maybe because Lucas didn't show up to give you that final confrontation with him, I think maybe that's why I feel that way. But there have been a lot of people who said they've been disappointed with the fights. I wasn't disappointed with the mechanics of the fights. I was just disappointed with the fact that there didn't seem to be enough of it. You did have kind of like a mini boss fight when he brought out that bloated, infected thing that pukes all over you, Lucas, when you were in his funhouse. But come on, that's kind of like fighting the thing from The Last of Us in the gym, that big, huge, fat thing. Actually, it was less interesting because it went down a lot faster and it didn't seem as dangerous to me. Enemy variety, that's something that really, it kind of got on my nerves. I'm not going to lie. It didn't feel like they really needed it. But once I played through it, and I'm starting to go through it now a second time, it does feel like, shit, it would have been nice if they had something else here. Because you've got the bakers, and that's really effective. You're using that, they're using it pretty much through the first half of the game, something like that. And it works. It works really well. But then you start getting to where it's just the molded and the crawling molded. And then that's it. There's nothing else. I mean, it would be fantastic if there was some sort of Cerberus, like a zombie dog, giant spiders, classic enemies like that. I would have loved to have seen zombies. I understand why they didn't use them, because it's easier to just shoot them in the head. I mean, make it take more bullets and add more of them. It's okay that they weren't in this game, but I'm telling you right now, with Resident Evil 8, I want to see some classic enemies. I want the spiders, a giant spider boss, giant snake. I don't care. Classic stuff like that. Lickers, I would like to see them. Hunters, start bringing some of those around. It might not make sense lore-wise because we're not really in that part of the story anymore, and I don't know if those BOWs are still quote-unquote active. I'm sure somebody's got them somewhere frozen in a basement somewhere in some suburban town that people aren't aware is right underneath their feet. But yeah, I would like to see a little bit more enemy variety in the next time around. Now, to get back to the similarities with Resident Evil 1, I don't know how many of you picked up on this, but it's kind of like the first half of the game's taking place in the mansion, say like Resident Evil 1 style. And then you go over to another area that's kind of like the guardhouse, and you've got the whole insect thing going on, and you have to handle that. And then when you came back to the house after that point, there was a bunch of enemies all over the place again, kind of like When you came back from the guardhouse, now, oh shit, there's hunters everywhere. So now I have to deal with that. You thought it was safe. You cleared it out. You killed all the zombies before you left the guardhouse. But now you're screwed because there's molded all over the damn house. So it kind of had that same feeling. And there were other instances where they did things similar to that. You know, you had the whole going into like an underground situation, which was a really interesting looking area. The mines area looked really nice. And I felt like it gave it a change of scenery, that pace that you needed to, you know, just to break away from the house and in the same setting. They took a small area and very effectively made it varied enough to where it didn't feel like it was getting boring. And I almost shit when I went from the underground mines area right back into the house when I realized, oh fuck, I'm in the basement again. How did I end up back here? It just kind of reminded you of something from like Texas Chainsaw or House of a Thousand Corpses. It's like, I can't get away from this fucking place. I know a lot of you were picking up on the Texas Chainsaw vibes, but did you get any of the Grudge that was going on there with the stairs, with her coming up the stairs, kind of like, it kind of reminded you of the Grudge, or Ju-on, for example, in Japan, as I believe it's known, or the Ring, you can go with that as well. It was very reminiscent of that. You had the whole Evil Dead thing. You guys probably saw that segment I put in there with Ash and the chainsaw. So they were playing off of that. Resident Evil has always done this. It's something that I've mentioned multiple times, and I keep seeing people, the dumbest people, and they don't even know how stupid they look when they say this shit. Oh, this game is like Texas Chainsaw, Hills Have Eyes, blah, 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 PT. And you have to say to them, well, what the fuck did you think the first Resident Evil was? It was like Night of the Living Dead, kind of mixed with B-horror movies, like giant spiders, all those like 50s films, giant snakes. You had Neptune the shark, which was just like Jaws. So you had a lot of things that they were doing there. They were playing off of a lot of that stuff, even some influence from, you could say, The Shining. I heard somebody say that in my comments section recently. I was like, yeah, I guess there is some of that going on there with the original mansion. It does have that kind of a feel, that isolated, out in the middle of nowhere feeling. They did it in a way where, you know, it's pretty much paying homage. It's not too much of a ripoff. The only part that kind of felt that way was the dinner scene. I mean, as soon as we saw that, everybody's like, all right, come on, it's directly taken from Chainsaw, and this is something that we saw months ago. But other than that, everything else I think was done subtly enough where it's a nod to where fans of those films are going to say, okay, I see where you got that from. That's cool. It doesn't feel cheesy or ripped off. But the dinner scene did kind of feel like it was a little forced. It's like so obvious what that's from. Now, that's not to say I didn't enjoy that scene. I did, definitely. And I can only imagine in VR what that must have been like when he was shoving the knife in your face. And yeah, but the performance of Marguerite during that scene I thought was hilarious. I'd laughed my ass off when I saw the trailer for it. And then when I played through it, I liked her all the way through. When she slams the door in your face, she's like, stay the fuck out! And slams the door. It's just like, what the hell? She's chasing me around this whole time, and then she just tells me to stay the fuck out and slams the door in my face. And that's how you know she's just batshit crazy. In terms of my favorite villain, that's probably Marguerite, because she was so animated, you know? Like I said, her face, I think, probably looked not as good, probably because they're trying to do so much with it. She kind of looks like a classic witch. She's got that twisted, gnarled looking chin and the nose and everything, so she's got that classic witch look to her. I like the fact that she's going around with the lantern. I felt that was effective. So she's probably my favorite villain. It's a toss-up between her and Lucas, because he was very much channeling the Saw thing, and that's another one I forgot to mention. Saw was all over this game. And it worked. It worked really well for him. The way he tortured Clancy was twisted, and it had this dark humor to it that I enjoyed. And it's a toss-up between the two of them. But in terms of good characters, we don't really have too many of those. It's going to definitely be Mia, because she's very mysterious, and I just liked her. There was one thing I picked up on, and some of the promotional stuff around the dinner scene, you can see Andre tied up. That didn't happen. Andre died. And we know that because, well, you go swimming past him. He's pretty much the first scare in the game, aside from, like, the crows. I think he was pretty much the first real big, oh, shit, because he pops up, maggots all over his face. And then you think back, you're like, wait, he was supposed to be at that dinner scene, but he wasn't there. Now, I'm going to be a little arrogant here, guys. You'll have to forgive me, but I did call this a few months ago the VHS tapes being a part of showing the story and playing the victim. I totally called that shit. I knew that was what they were going to be doing. I guess it's not too much of a stretch, right? We got to kind of do that in the teaser. But for me, I saw it as, holy shit, that's a great opportunity for them to tell the story, let you play someone who gets killed, you know? It's really disturbing when that happens, right? Because you know there's nothing you can do. Like when Clancy's burning and you're trying to get out of the room. I know most people didn't just stand there and say, oh yeah, he's screwed. Most people tried to get him out of there. And then you realize, oh yeah, he's obviously going to die. It doesn't matter. He's not the main character. But it's effective. I felt that it worked really well. And I didn't even find all of the tapes, so hopefully there's a couple more victims I haven't seen yet. It would be pretty cool. Of course, we have to talk about that article from Alyssa Ashcroft. Those of you who are fans of the Resident Evil Outbreak games, is this a foreshadowing of something, maybe? Are we going to be getting HD Outbreak? I know I wasn't going to talk about this again, guys. I promised everybody, because I was disappointed when the rumors turned out to not be true about that coming out. Some people are still holding on to hope for that. And yeah, a small part of me is thinking, well, maybe. It might still happen. But this does give me hope. Why throw that in there? Is it just a nod to fans? If they just did that, it's just kind of a slap in the face, right? Oh, hey, this is here, but guess what? We're not going to do anything with it just because we wanted to put things in here. And I guess it would kind of make sense, though, guys, for Resident Evil, everything that Resident Evil 7 was doing. There was a lot of nods to older games. Look at the picture of the Arclay Mountains from 1991. July 7th, I think it was. Yeah, 7/7/91. You could look at the mountains. So they did a bit of that. And then the whole thing with the ship. It reminded me of, what was it, the Queen Zenobia? Was that the one from Revelations? I can't remember the name of that one. So as soon as you went on there, you kind of got that feeling, especially when you went on the bridge. The bridge looked exactly like that. I don't know if all bridges look like this on ships. I really don't know. But I definitely got that vibe. And they wanted you to get that vibe. They wanted you to feel like you were playing something that was familiar. And if you guys remember, when the first Revelations came out, it was being heralded as, holy shit, this is kind of a survival horror game. It's not just an action game anymore. And a lot of people were saying that's as close as we've gotten for a long time. So that's probably why they threw that in there. I like that whole container ship section. It had a lot of tension. The enemies, there was a lot of points where you just kind of had to run away, and I felt it was really effective. It was a great kind of last level to kind of end things. It really wasn't the last place where you were, but it was one of the final stages, right? And it just felt great. Going back into the past felt really cool, being able to see the ship before everything got all messed up. Then you get some really nice views, and it sets the scene nice where you can see where the whole damn ship is just destroyed. And you're standing there thinking about how everything went down. At least I was thinking about the ship that just happened to get all fucked up right over here, right away, not too far away from where the Bakers were. You know, it just happened to land in their neck of the woods and completely destroy their lives. The whole scene with Jack, with Ethan and Jack, when he was like, I'm not a killer, son, that whole thing, it had a bit of cheese to it, but it did kind of hit you in the feels a little bit. It's like, oh man, it's kind of fucked up the way his whole family was just used. They were manipulated, and you basically just got done fucking them all up. And then he's like, put it all to rest, bring peace to my family, in so many words. And you don't really get the chance to do that, because where the hell is Lucas? So there you have it, guys. That is my complete review for Resident Evil 7 and all the things I wanted to say about it. I'm sure once I get through my second and third playthrough, things are going to pop up that I wish I put on this video, but I want to get this out there in somewhat of a timely fashion. The game has, after all, been out for about a week, a little over a week now, I believe. At this point, I want to kick it over to you guys. What did you think of Resident Evil 7? What did you think of the story? Do you like where the series is going? Are you looking forward to Resident Evil 8? Let me know. Share your thoughts in the comment section below, folks. I thank you all for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in my next video.